Anybody know somebody that knows everything? If you don't, you're probably the one. So you might be the one that knows everything. It seems like we're infatuated with this thirst for knowledge. We want to know everything. Now, there are some people that are, just happily stupid, and they want to stay that way. But most people are not that way. We search out things. We search out facts, and we want to know stuff, and we want to know about people, and we want to know about things, and we study, and we learn, and we go to college, and we learn all this stuff. And if you don't go to college, then maybe you learn at a trade school, or maybe you just learn on your own. Maybe you're the kind of person that just looks stuff up and finds stuff out. You just want to figure out how to do things. We have a thirst for knowledge, and that thirst has brought about awesome things. You saw a lot of them in the video, things that people couldn't even imagine. One of the Wright brothers said it'll be years before we fly, and he flew 2 years later. They said that there would only, what was the quote? There would probably be a global market for only 5 computers. I own more than 5 computers. There's this thirst for knowledge that we all have. And it's good. It's a God-given thing, and God wants us to know as much as we possibly can. Some of us know more than others, and some of us are still trying to learn. That's me. I'm still trying to learn all that I can. I love to learn, but I don't like to go to school. I'm not a great student, because the only things I like to learn about are things that interest me. And I found out that in college and in school in general, I had to learn a bunch of stuff that really did not interest me. I was not interested. Now, I grinded it out, and I made it through, but I can tell you this, I've learned a lot more outside of a classroom than I did inside of a classroom, because that's just the way that I'm made up. Now, if you're under the age of 18 or so in this room, do not leave here saying, well, John said that I didn't have to go to college, I could learn. That's between you and your parents, all right? Y'all figure that stuff out. I'm just saying, for me, I learn better outside of a classroom than I do inside of the classroom. But I don't like to not know things. I like to have the answer. Now, that may just be a guy thing. Guys really like to have the answer. If you ask a question, I want to be able to answer it. The problem is, a lot of times, I'm just going to put the guys on the spot here. A lot of times, guys, even if they don't know the answer, they'll just go ahead and try to make something up. And if you say it convincingly enough, you can convince people of a lot of things. You know, I've found myself to be pretty good at that you can just convince people anything you want to convince them of, as long as you say it with enough authority, and you say it convincingly enough, and you make up enough stats to prove it, then everything is great, and you look like the smartest person in the world. And it's not just about things that we like to know about. We like to know about people. How many people in here are interested in people? You just like to know about people. Some of you aren't going to admit it, because you are the Facebook stalkers. You are the people who get on Facebook and you look at people's profiles that you do not know, and you're just trying to find out stuff about them. You know what I'm talking about. Some of you are like, that's not me, that's you. You get on there and you look, and it'll be a friend of a friend of a friend that that made some comment on some status that you put up or your friend put up, and then so you go search them out, and you want to see if they were joking or if they just really are that stupid. And so you go look through all of their stuff and find out what they said, and you look at their photos, and you look at their when they were born, so you can know how old they are. You look at all of this stuff about them, and you get to know about people. We like to know about people so much that network television has made billions of dollars on reality TV. Every show now on the cable networks is some kind of reality TV. And I'm guilty. I'm hooked. I like Pawn Stars. I like, there's this new show called Appalachian Outlaws. Some of you have seen it, haven't you? You know what I'm talking. They dig up ginseng. Did you know there's only 2 months out of the year that you can dig up ginseng? And like these people from Korea and Japan come to West Virginia and Georgia and they buy up all this ginseng. These people are going on people's lands and poaching this stuff and they're getting shot at. It is very interesting to watch these hillbillies shoot at each other. And I feel like I know a lot about ginseng now. I know that it's a root. I know that I looked in my backyard. I ain't got any because I was going to sell it. There's about 3 or 4 green leaves that go out that kind of looks like poison oak, but then there's these little red berries on it. If you're not experienced with poison oak and poison ivy, I would not go out and try to dig ginseng. And it doesn't grow here; it grows in the Appalachian Mountains because the climate is perfect. I've digressed and told you a little bit more about Appalachian outlaws than you needed to know, but I'm intrigued by that kind of stuff. I watch all of those shows, Counts Customs, because there's 2 things. There's this human story to it, and then there's these awesome cars and bikes that I get to watch them rebuild. I love that kind of television because I get to find out about people and about things. I get to learn. It goes further than just looking at friends of friends on Facebook. We follow celebrities. Because somehow they're supposed to be smart because they've been in a movie or something. I don't know. And so we follow them on Facebook, and then we follow them on Twitter, so that they have just a limited amount of characters to tell us everything that they know. That's #creepy. If you do that, I don't follow any celebrities on my Facebook or Twitter because I don't really care what they have to say. What happens is, though, these people get on there. I've heard people say before that they put something, they sent a message or they posted it on somebody's wall, some celebrity, and they were so impressed that they commented back to it. And I'm like, oh yeah, great. They gave you the time of day. Congratulations. That's really good that their person that they have hired to run their Facebook account went ahead and commented back to you. We get so tied up in wanting to know about people that we fail to be able to know them. Because what happens is we know a lot about them, but we only know what they want us to know about them. Now, some of you are way more open than others on Facebook and Twitter, and so we may really get to know a little bit more of you than what we wanted to, but most people are kind of guarded. You put out the good stuff. You don't put out every detail about every horrible day you have. Some people do, but most people don't. You put out the details about the great things that happen, or the great things your kids do, or the great things that whoever did, and you put those things out there, and people get to know about you, and they get to know the good things about you. And what happens is we start to envy and we start to get jealous because all we ever think that's going on in somebody's life is all the good things, because that's what we see. We know about them. We know about the good times in their lives. We know about the good things that they've done and the good things that they've accomplished, but we fail to see all of the failures that they've had because they don't share that with us. We just know about them. We don't really have any personal experience with those people. Just those people that are just Facebook people. The people in this room, you get to have experiences with them. You experience things with them every day. You get to know them. You get to learn not just about them, but you get to learn them. Think about it. Somebody that you're really, really close to. Somebody, either a family member or a best friend or something. Somebody you spend a lot of time with. It gets to the point where you know what they're going to say before they say it. Right? You know what they like. You know what they dislike. You know where they want to go, where they don't want to go. You know where they want to go eat. You know where they won't want to go eat. You know all of these things about them, not from a point of spying on them or stalking on them, but because you've had experiences with them. You've experienced that bad Chinese restaurant together, and you know that neither one of you ever want to go back there again. Right? Because it's because of the experience that you really get to know somebody. I've got a friend that I went to high school with, that him and his family have been attending here. And it was really cool the first time they came. I went out to lunch with them, and we got to talking, and it was this strange dynamic because I knew him and he knew me, but our families did not know each other at all. And we were talking like we'd never spent any time apart whatsoever, and I hadn't seen the guy since high school, 20 years. I hadn't seen him in that long, but but we spent a lot of time together back then, and so we had common experiences. We had things that we had shared. I had seen the way he acted, and I'd seen what he'd done, and he'd seen the way I acted and what I had done, and I would prefer you never ask him about those things, but we were experiencing life together, and so we know each other differently than the rest of our family knew each other. I've got a couple of friends here today that I went to church with when I was a youth pastor, and they were my youth sponsors. And they know me differently than some of you know me because we had experiences together, really strange experiences together sometimes. But all of that takes place, and we get to know each other not because I read about them on Facebook or I read about them in a book or I know a friend of theirs, but we know each other because of the experiences that we have together. Here's where I'm going with all of this. A lot of us know a lot about God. Some of us don't know a lot about God, but some of us maybe have been in church forever, or we've read the Bible all the way through, or we've done this, or we've done that, we went to seminary, we've done whatever, and we know a lot about God. You can quote me chapter and verse of things that Jesus said. You can go through and you can name all the books of the Bible. There's a lot of stuff, and all of that stuff is great. But knowing about God does not mean that you know Christ. Knowing about Him does not mean that you know Him. I know a lot about President Obama. I know a lot about him. I don't know him personally. He's never ate dinner at my house. I've never went out to eat with him. We've never shot basketball. We've never done any of that stuff together. But I know a lot about him. All of those things are very trivial things. I know he has a dog, and he pays somebody a lot of money to walk that dog. And I know that he lives in a big white house. And I know a lot of stuff about him, but I don't know him personally. And I'm scared that what happens is when we come to church and we come here and we gather together and we eat our donuts and we drink our coffee and we come in here and we learn things and we, get a couple of verses that we hear about, I'm afraid that what happens a lot of times is some of us get to know a lot about God, but we miss our opportunity to really know God. Understand, this is directed towards me as much as it is anybody out in this room. But we get so busy going on with our lives, making things happen, making money, spending time with the family, doing whatever it is that we do. And we sneak in some time on Facebook to post whatever it is Joel Osteen put up, or whatever it is that T.D. Jakes put up, or Joyce Meyer, or Beth Moore, or whoever it is. We post those things, and then, we've all subscribed to YouVersion and their verse of the day, and so that pops up, and we put that up on there. And, that counts as our daily Bible study, and we learn a little bit more about God, and we go through the rest of our day without ever acknowledging His presence. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I'm standing here right now saying there are days that go by that I do not acknowledge God in my own life. There are days that I let slip by that I don't talk to Him, that I don't read the Word, that I don't worship Him. Now, I try to with my life, and I try to be this living example of Christ and do all of these things, but there are times that go by that I do not acknowledge Him. And if that was the kind of relationship that anybody else had with me, I would not consider them a very good friend. If my wife came home day after day and did not acknowledge my presence, she doesn't have to say, "Hello, Lord of the house," or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, walk in the door, Or I walk in the door and one of us is sitting there and neither one of us say anything to the other person and we go our separate ways until the morning when we go our separate ways again, until that night when we come back and go our separate ways again. Everybody in this room knows what's going to happen to that relationship. Some of you have been in that relationship. Some of you have seen your parents in that relationship. Nobody wants to be in that relationship, but things happen. The problem is that we let those same things that happen in our personal lives happen in our Christian walk. We let those things happen in our relationship with Christ. The problem is that we are the ones that are ignoring, because His love never fails. He loves us no matter what. He always loves us. He's always there for us. He's waiting for us at all times just to speak to Him, just to talk to Him, just to acknowledge Him. And we get busy, and we go on. Knowing about God does not make you a Christian. Knowing Christ makes you a Christian. Knowing, not knowing about, knowing. It's about relationship. It's about experiencing life with Christ. Listen to me. It's about experiencing life with Christ. I want you to think about yesterday. Just think about yesterday, what you did yesterday or Friday. Maybe you didn't get off the couch yesterday. Think about Friday if you didn't get off the couch yesterday. Think about the things that happened. Think about if you lived your life like you were in relationship with Christ. Think about whether you could see Christ at work in different situations that you went through that day. Because when you experience Him in that way, when you experience Him like that, then you get to know Him. I want to read something really quick out of Matthew chapter 16, verse 13. It says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, He asked His disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. Jesus is sitting with His disciples. These are the guys that have followed Him everywhere. They've been with Him. These guys have seen amazing things. They have experienced Christ in awesome ways. And He's sitting there and He says, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" Saying, "I am." Who do people say that I am? And they begin to talk. They say, well, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. And then He asked them, He said, "But who do you say that I am?" He looked them dead in the eye and said, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter spoke up. I love Peter because it seems like he's always the first one to speak up. Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." He knew exactly who He was. He knew exactly who He was. There are people in my life that I can tell you exactly. I can tell you exactly who they are. If you ask me who my mom and dad are, I can tell you in detail. I can tell you how great of parents they are, and I can go through and I can tell you all of this stuff about them because I know them. I've spent my life with them. You ask me who my wife is, and you can't pronounce her name. It's Shallon, like Sharon with an L. It's not that hard, but people have trouble with it. You ask me who she is, and I can tell you. I can tell you who she is. Not just what she looks like because she's gorgeous, but I can tell you who she is on the inside. I can tell her things that I can tell you things about her that nobody else has been close enough to her to know. I I know her. I can tell you about my daughter. I know her. I know the kind of person that she is. I know the kind of person that she is when she's with me and the kind of person that she is when she's away from me, because I know her. I know who she is. I have a relationship with her. We all have experienced life together. I know them. But I wonder what I would say, and I wonder what you would say if we were sitting in a circle and Jesus pointed to us and said, "Who do you say that I am?" Now, I know what we may say to his face, but what do we say every day when we're in the world? What do we say every day when we're outside of these doors? Who do we say that he is? Peter answered, "You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God." The Messiah, the one who has come to save the world. The one who would be sacrificed for my sin. Peter said, "You are the Son of God." And Jesus said something to him. He said, Blessed are you, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. What's he saying by that? He's saying this isn't something that you went around on Facebook and found out. This isn't something that you just read about me and figured it out. This isn't something that you heard from a friend of a friend. But it's something that God has revealed to you because you have experienced life with me. But Peter was able to say quickly, with everything that was within him, he was able to say, "You are the Son of God." And he was able to say that because he had experienced life with Christ. It was revealed to him by God through his experiences that he had. He had listened to all of his teachings. He was with him during the Sermon on the Mount when crowds of people gathered and Jesus spoke about how to live a life of love. He experienced those teachings. He was with him when he healed the leper. Peter was there and he saw a man who could not walk, and Jesus reached down and touched him, and he walked. He was there when the deaf could hear. He was there when Jesus made the blind to see. He was there when he calmed the storm with just his voice. When the disciples were on the boat and the waves were crashing in and they felt like they were going to capsize, Peter was there when Jesus said, "Peace, be still," and the storm stopped. That's pretty convincing for Peter. I know a lot of you have been asking the snow to stop and it didn't. You obviously are not the Son of God. But he's able to do those kind of things, and Peter had experienced that. Peter was there, and he saw it all happen. He was there when Jesus fed the 5,000. And the cool part about it wasn't like just Jesus went poof and everybody was fed. What Jesus did was he had his disciples and they said, "We've got to feed these people. They're passing out because they're hungry. They've been following you and we've got to do something." And Jesus said, "What do we got?" And they said, "Well, we've got, these loaves and fishes, and it's not enough to even feed this little boy that brought it. But this is all we've got." And Jesus said, "You feed them." Now here's where I would run into trouble because I'm a smart aleck. And I think what might have went through my mind was, "You're the Son of God. You feed them. You can do this. I've got nothing here. All I've got is these couple of fish and a couple of loaves of bread, and you're asking me to feed 5,000 stinking people, and I can't do that." But Jesus said, "You feed them." And these people had walked with Jesus enough to know. These people had been close enough to Christ to know. They knew the look in his eye. They knew that the way, you can tell what somebody means just by the tone of their voice if you know them. If you know them. I'm good friends with Sam. I love Sam. Sam, forgive me, Sam. Sam sounds angry sometimes. Some of you that have been around here before know that. But he's not angry. Sam doesn't get angry. Well, I've never seen Sam angry, but you can talk to Alicia about that. But Sam, I've never seen him really angry, but when he's passionate about something, it's just the tone of his voice I mistook because I didn't know him well enough at the time. But once I got to know Sam, once I got to know Sam's heart, I knew the tone of his voice. I can tell when Sam's joking. I can tell when he's passionate. And I don't know if I could tell when he's mad. I've never really seen him that way, but I'm guessing it would be passionate, heated up a little bit more. And so I know the tone of his voice, and I know that because I've spent time with him. These disciples on that day, they knew by the tone in Jesus' voice that something was about to happen. They knew that because they had heard him before. They'd heard him before say, "Bring her to me." And they knew by the tone of his voice something was going to change in that lady's life. They knew because they were trying to shield him from people as he was walking down the road, and some woman snuck through and just touched the very hem of his garment. And he said, "Someone touched me." And they looked at him and said, "Of course, Jesus, somebody touched you. There's a mob around you." And he said, "No, somebody touched me." And they knew by the tone of his voice and the look in his eye that something miraculous had just taken place. They knew that because they had experienced him. Peter was there. Peter was able to say that you are the Son of God because Peter was there when he walked on the water. Peter gets a bum rap a lot of times. As the Bible says, they were out and it was dark. The waves were kind of high. And the people on the boat looked out and they saw something walking across the water. They thought it was a ghost. Jesus said, "Don't be afraid, it's just me." Peter said, "If it's really you, let me walk out there to you." See, he knew. He knew if it was really Jesus that Jesus could let him walk on that water. He'd seen all this stuff. He knew the power that Jesus had. So Peter says, "If it's you, let me come out there." And Peter had the guts to trust Jesus enough to jump out of the boat. And Peter walked on the water. And everybody jumps on his case because he looked around and saw the waves crashing and he got scared and he started sinking. I don't think that's the important part of the story. I think the important part is that he knew Jesus enough to know that he could jump out of the boat. And even if he did sink, Christ was going to be there. Think about that. Even if he did sink, he had no fear of dying because he knew Jesus was there. When Hannah was a real little girl, she's still pretty little, but I mean real little. But she was a little girl. I don't know, 3 years old or so. My mother-in-law lived in Norman and had a pool. Hannah could not swim. She was 3. Hannah also had no fear if I was there. She'd say, "I'm going to jump to you, Daddy, and I'm going to swim." I said, "Babe, you can't swim." And she'd jump in, and I'd catch her. And she'd say, "No, let me swim." I said, "Babe, you cannot swim." She'd get out and she'd jump, and this went over and over. She had no fear, and so finally, I told Shallon, I'm going to have to let her sink so she'll be scared. If not, she's going to convince herself she can swim, and we're going to find her in this pool. So I backed up. She said, "Let me swim." I said, "Okay," and she jumped in and she sunk. And I waited, and I waited till I just thought there's no possible way she can still be holding her breath. And so I swooped in and I grabbed her and I picked her up. And through her coughs and her sputters, she said, "I was almost swimming. I was almost doing it." You weren't even close, babe, but okay. And I think Peter was a lot like that. Peter just had faith that Jesus was going to be there no matter what. Even if he did start to sink, even if he didn't really make it to walk on the water like Christ, he knew with everything in his heart that it was going to be okay as long as he followed Christ. He knew that not because he'd read about it. He knew that not because somebody in a goofy blue sweater had stood up and told him on a Sunday morning that Christ would be there. That's not why he knew. He knew because he had experienced Christ in so many ways. We've got to start experiencing God for ourselves. I love this church. I really do. I have more fun here than I've had in my entire life of ministry. I am 38 years old, and I started full-time ministry when I was 19 years old. This is all I've ever done besides all of the side jobs I've had to pick up to support my family. But This is what I do. I love it. I've been doing this forever, and I've never had more fun, and I've never enjoyed it so much as I do right now. This church. I love you guys and what you stand for and everything that you are. I love this church. But I don't ever want us to get to the place where we know about God and we don't know Him. I don't want this to be a Sunday morning ritual. I don't want this to just be what we do. It's important that we experience God quickly. We've got to experience God for ourselves. We do that through living His teachings. Don't get me wrong and think that all of this was about not reading your Bible and not learning about God. No, it just has to be in conjunction with living and experiencing life with Christ. You have to study. You have to learn about what Jesus said to do, to love others unconditionally, to love your neighbor as yourself, to forgive. And you walk that every day of your life. You walk His teachings. You do what Christ would do. And it's more than having a cheesy bracelet that says WWJD on it. It's more than that. It's about really making it happen in your life. And if you need the bracelet to remind you, then by all means, wear the bracelet. But don't wear the bracelet or put the bumper sticker on your car if you're not going to live or drive like Christ would. It's about living your life with Christ, experiencing Him in every aspect of your life, in every part, not just here, but experiencing Him on a daily basis, living His teachings, reading the Word, and through worship. Today, during worship, I had a hard time. I was getting choked up because my mind tends to wander sometimes. And I was singing that last song about His love for me, and all of these things are coming up into my mind of reasons why He shouldn't love me. And on the other side of my brain is this voice saying, but I do anyway. But I do anyway. This voice saying, really, I don't remember that. Really, I don't remember that. All I know is that I love you. And I'm singing this song, and this is going on in my head, and it gets me choked up because I do not deserve to be loved the way that He loves me. I fall so short in my relationships sometimes. But I want to live my life and experience Him in every part of my life. When you truly experience Him, then you can live for Him. When you've experienced Him the way that Peter experienced Him, then you can say with certainty that He is the Son of God. So I want to ask you a question. Who do you say that He is? I want you to close your eyes for a moment. This may seem goofy to you, and I apologize if it does. But imagine yourself in that circle. And imagine Jesus Christ looking at you and saying, "Who do you say the Son of Man is?" Who do you say that I am? And what I'm asking you is, will your experiences with Him allow you to say, "You are the Messiah, the Savior. You are the Son of the living God"? Or do your experiences just say, "Well, you're this guy that they talk about at Discover Church," or "You're this guy that I read about in the Bible," or "You're the guy in the creepy painting on my grandma's kitchen wall"? Who do you say that He is? Because I don't know about you, but I want to be able to look Him in the eye and say, "You are the Messiah. You are my Savior." If you can't say that this morning, I have great news for you. You can begin to experience Him even right now. Because He loves us so much. That He's willing just to take off from where you are right now and start life with you all over again. He's willing to pick up all the broken pieces of things that you've shattered in your life and give you new life. You have to experience Him for yourself. You have to experience Him for yourself this morning.